Okay, we are on, we are live. Hey, Lateisha, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Oriel?
I am doing well. Hey, everybody, welcome back. You are in Fuel, Friends United in Entrepreneurial Leadership. We talk about everything to raise our business acumen and create an environment of positivity, of growth, of profit, and longevity. So, we are back with another master class master. Today, we're going to talk about wealth. So if you guys want to get in touch with me, you can always catch me at orielross.com, ORIELROSS.com. And I am your small biz engine. So I'm here to hash it out with you and become your partner. So today, help me welcome Lateisha Johnson. She is a prosperity coach. She's a best-selling author, an international speaker, and a philanthropist, and a multi-passionate entrepreneur, I will say. And I am just so happy to welcome her to talk about wealth and talk about the mistakes that we make in our lives as well as in our businesses. So again, profit is not a bad word. So let's talk about it. Welcome, Lateisha, to Fuel.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone who is tuning in. I'm excited to be here. And as Oriel mentioned, I am all about helping you get a better relationship with your money because it is a relationship and empowering communities through financial literacy. Because in order to get profits, like she mentioned, you have to be financially literate.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about yourself and include how everyone could find you too.
Sure. So, again, my name is Lateisha Johnson, prosperity coach. In a nutshell, what I do, like I mentioned, is I help you get a better relationship with your money, and and you can find me very simply on my website, LateishaJohnson.com. That's LATEISHA Johnson.com, and I'm on various social mediums as well. So Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. You can find me using my brand name, which is Wealth and Wellness Network. And you can find me. I'm all over social media. And again, what I am about is just help empowering you when it comes to your money. And since we're talking about business, it's all about making profits because let's be honest, the elephant in the room, you know, most can I talk about myself? Is it okay if I talk about my journey?
Absolutely.
Okay. So most people get in business or start entrepreneurship because they're passionate about something. And my journey was a little bit unique and different. So I actually went to Temple University, got a degree in broadcast media, and straight from school, I was able to start working in the television news industry. It was my dream to be a television producer, and I started moving up that corporate ladder. And as I first actually relocated from Philadelphia to New York. So I'm in the Big Apple. I'm making money, although it's expensive, but I'm making money, getting access to all types of things, perks, you name it. But the thing was, I did not have any idea what I was doing when it came to my finances. So I actually started this journey through my own self transformation, where I actually became more financial literate, started seeking the help and mentorship from those that were 6 and 7 figure earners, and then I ventured out on my own, started working independent as an independent business owner in the financial services space. I was very blessed to be able to get awards and to hit different records in the state and things like that. I've got my licenses to be able to help women, help families in particular, be able to get properly protected, protect their assets, and then also help with investment. So that's how I got here today, and I'm super excited. Now what I do is I have Wealth and Wellness Network, which is my brand, and I do a number of different things. I have a nonprofit organization where I'm all about impacting underprivileged communities and helping them be able to create a dollar and turn that into a powerful vehicle and impact the economy. So I have a number of things going on, but in essence, what I am about is impacting our folks, especially women in business, to be able to generate profits and become more financially independent.
Yeah, and it's so key. You touched on a lot of things, and your experience is vast. So it's great. We're gonna have a great dialogue. And there's some such taboo sometimes in talking about finances and money, and I want to just erase that veil. And let's get really real. Let's get uncomfortable if we have to. A lot of times you want to, I have access maybe to like my clients' balance sheets, but having that from the beginning is just such a it's such a tool for me to be able to help them more, and I want us to be able to talk about money more clearly. So one of the things that you do is your network is which is an internationally based network of the Wealth and Wellness Network, which I'm a part of proudly. And we're throwing this term wealth around, and vernacular changes depending on your audience. So for you, how would you define wealth?
Absolutely, and thank you for that question. So, just to clarify for those who may not know, Wealth and Wellness Network is an app-based community that allows women entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs to learn money and business skills to help them accelerate their businesses and their startups. So, wealth to me, I like to define it as legacy. And I know that's a very broad term. So let me, if I may, break that down. What I mean. So when I say legacy, I mean building something that sustains itself and that stands the test of time, generations to come. So in my case, not just, I wouldn't say just looking at just your children, that's first level, but really being able to go beyond that. So your children, your community, the
Mhm.
generations to come, your grandchildren. And when I talk about having money, in particular, is not just earning it. I like to call it beach money or sleep money. So that means not just having money coming in, not just having, just money that you earned and saved for retirement, and maybe you pass some of that on, or just having certain things saved for your children, but having beach money and sleep money. So what does that mean? That means passive and residual income. So businesses, portfolio income. So that's in your investments, real estate, having an estate. So that's when I think of it on a very large scale. And
Mhm.
then, like I said, going beyond just your first tier, which is usually your children.
Right. And so that's key, and it's I like to also think of it as, succession planning. So a lot of what we do in business is what comes next. We're not thinking in terms of our business as the collateral, as the investment, as the property that it really is. So what happens next? If you don't build legacy, then you don't really have a plan. Your business should be able to survive whether you're there or not, and it should be able to be passed down in any form. It can be to family, and it can be depending on how big you are, shareholders, et cetera, it will go on. So we have to look at not just exit strategy, but what are you building for? So that's one of the key things when it comes for business and wealth. But let's talk about on a personal level. So when you're dealing with your clients, and your book, you have a best-selling book that's called Five Money Mistakes That Are Costing You a Fortune. And I want to peel back the onion a little bit on that. We're definitely going to address the business, but what I found is when business finances are a little hinky,
Out of whack.
out of whack, it's also a spring off of personal finances being out of whack. So if you could extract from those lessons that you're a proponent of, share with us what are the top one or two mistakes that you see that we're making.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, there's a number of different things, and I think first thing that needs to be addressed is our money story. So I cannot take credit for coining the phrase at all. I actually learned about it by a fella named John Assaraf, who was in The Secret, and he is a I call like neurologist type of person who does how people think around money. So it comes to your money story. And what I mean by that is a lot of ways that we have, like our spending habits, the way that we think about money, our relationship with money is due to the things that we learned or developed during our childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So an example is, for example, for me, when I was growing up, I always had this idea of working hard for the money. My grandfather used to say certain words like money doesn't grow on trees. You got to work hard, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. So I had this notion that you had to work hard. So for me, starting out with my personal finances, let's start there. I actually worked 2 and 3 jobs at a time. And I really didn't have to do so. So I always had this battle of it was going to take a long time, and it had to be hard work, heavy lifting in order for me to make money. And it translated over into my business, where I didn't believe that at one point that money can flow easily to me, and there could be an abundance form of money, and I can have multiple streams of income. That was very foreign to me. So I would say that's the first step, is really dispelling the myth of the limiting beliefs around money, because that's not something that's really addressed. We're so quick to want to learn the mechanics of wealth, but we don't address our limitations, our limiting beliefs, our scarcity and poverty thinking first. So that's one mistake. And that works, and like I said, starts personally, and it also translates into your business. Secondly, is only having, and we see it now with this crazy pandemic, that having just one source of income is not enough. And when I say one source of income, because I know we probably have all types of viewers here. I know this is specifically for entrepreneurs, but more than likely, most entrepreneurs are either solopreneurs. They have just one baby that they have. So there's one thing that they really do. They have like one type of service and or product, or they might have a side business, which is great. So you want to make sure you have more than one income, but more importantly, not just multiple streams of income. I want to break that down, not just multiple streams of income on the surface level, meaning that, okay, so I have a side business, and then I create another side business, and I create another this and that, and you're creating just more work for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you end up being just that solopreneur. But you want to shift your mind about creating multiple streams of income that are passive, that are residual, that do not have to have you physically having your hands in the equation. So this is a different mindset. So that's when delegation comes in, which is another mistake, and it's tied into that multiple streams of income, because as entrepreneurs, we think about our baby. This is something we birthed. This is something we're very passionate about. And it's very, very difficult for us to release responsibility to other people. So those two things I think are very dynamic. Once you realize that you have a certain limiting beliefs, that's one. Really figuring out your money story so you can overcome that hurdle. And then two, focusing on creating multiple streams of wealth. And that does not mean you have to have your hands in so many pots that you don't have the energy to do it. But no, really thinking about how you can collaborate, how you can delegate and create those passive streams of income.
Right. So that's an excellent point. I want everybody to know a couple things. If you are listening to us live, do hashtag live. If any of this has resonated with you so far, let's do hashtag 1. And we know that we're talking about wealth and mindset, and we'll follow up in that regard. If you're listening to the replay, hashtag replay, and same thing, we'll follow up with your hashtag 1 to this point. You're talking about mindset, and it shifts to me based on, of course, how we were raised and, all those things that come into play and build up to who we are. Do you also see a difference in when it comes to gender? Do men particularly view money differently than women? And how does that affect? Because your network is geared toward women, right? But certainly you have male clients as well. What do you notice?
Absolutely. So women, as we know, we are more emotionally built, right? So a lot of decisions that we make are usually emotional, and they're not always the most rational, logical ways of going about our finances until we notice what things we need to adjust. So there's several studies out there. There's several stats about the differences between women and men when it comes to business. So I won't bore you with all of that. But what I can say, there are distinct differences. So, for example, a recent study was done by the U.S. Bank, I believe it was, and they started asking questions about money to men versus women, and the type of responses that men were giving when they said the word money and dollars and cents and things like that, men were like excited. They were saying words like excitement, uh, they were saying excitement, they were saying empowered, and women were saying scared, vulnerable. Those were the words that they were using. So you see the distinction between the two, very totally different. As you can see, on one hand, one is more negative, negative connotation, and for men it was a little bit more positive and empowering. Susie Orman, actually, I love Susie Orman. She has a book called Women and Money, and she talks about just different scenarios where a women were going out and they were buying certain things, and there was this specific woman that went out and her credit card declined, and the first thing she started to do was to explain herself and explain that she has money in the bank and all this logic, right? And she was emotional behind it, and I believe the reason was because of her emotional attachment to it. I mean, even think about emotional spending, so there is a big distinction. And I think that all stems from women not really having these conversations. Because think about it, money is pretty taboo, especially for women. We talk about things, and let's be honest, we'll talk about shopping, we'll talk about our children, our family, but it's very rare that we'll talk about our money. And then that also talks about like the things that are more difficult when it comes to business building, because those are taboo, those are emotional connections. But if we start having conversations like this, get more comfortable about our finances, where we are, and really seek the help and understanding, then we can actually triumph and be a lot more financially savvy. And those are things that translate over into our business as well. And some of the mistakes that we do, which I would love to talk about. Actually, if you pay attention, there's a correlation between all of them.
Between what? All of the mindset and money, or money mistakes and
yes, so mindset and money in our how we do personally, it translates over into our business. So for example, let's talk about some money mistakes around business. So there's quite a few out there, people, everyone is different, but several that I've noticed. I'll start with one, is just going back to that seeking for help. Women were very multitask. We're used to doing things on our own. We're many a times we're independent. We take care of different parties, different people, our family. So we're used to doing things on our own, but we don't seek the help. So for example, with starting a business, we'll just jump out and just do things and just learn by trial and error, instead of joining a network such as this, where you can get access to the resources. Taking a look into a SCORE, for example, where you can, and SCORE is just basically an organization that has retired entrepreneurs, and they will give you mentorship for the various areas of your business. So like taking advantage of that, even funding, for example. There's so many grants out there, and loans and opportunities right now. And believe it or not, I'm seeing it, with my own clients. Women in particular are just not taking advantage of it. And there's even been studies about us not really raising our hands, saying that we need help, or really going out and after of it because of our own personal insecurity, so to speak.
Yeah. And I think it's about moving people into readiness. And so with, like, for example, young people in my life, like nieces, nephews, godchildren, things like that, I have a habit of purchasing savings bonds, or, a share of stock. But I've also seen it where they still don't use it. They still, so it's many years later, and it was, designed from, let's say, birth to 17 to at least pay for, let's say, your books at college or something like that, where you'll be able to see the maturation of the dollars, and then you'll see the value, and it would mean something. Or, you may, purchase an open stock through, whatever, any of these companies, Webull, Robinhood, anything, but then the person may not use it.
Right.
getting past that to now it's in front of you, you're creating additional roadblocks to using it. And so where I see that in business is there are opportunities out there, such as whether it's grants or PPP funding, which due to the pandemic, it's, part of, the program, the CARES program, and still not capitalizing on it, or understanding our tax obligations within our businesses. And then I've noticed that some clients will, for those whose their financials are in proper order, they're able to take advantage of every opportunity, because some of these opportunities are down at a county level. So do you have all your county documents and your tax documents up to date so that you can take advantage of the opportunity which people are clamoring for? So it's a finite number of dollars. You can't wait and miss opportunity.
Exactly.
That's what it
And
boils down to.
it does boil down to that. And something that you said, and it summed it all up, and the word understanding. Understanding. How do you get understanding? You seek it. You're taught how to do it. It's just like with anything else. If we want to lose weight, what do? We get a personal trainer.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to, learn how to do X, Y, and Z, we go to school, right? And whether you get a degree or not, you learned your ABCs by going to class, right? So it's the same thing with your money. And if you think about history, the woman, just U.S. history, just really, I won't bore us all with all of that, but just think about it, just maybe about 60, from the 50s, 60s, women really started to get into the workforce. We went to the workforce, but we didn't necessarily get guided on how our finances work, but we were responsible for the household.
Right.
So think about if we were taught, and this what comes into play, like, again, groups like this, things that I'm doing in Wealth and Wellness Network, taking advantage of those opportunities would be a lot easier. But most people, I've learned this just doing business. Most people don't take action when they're confused. Most people don't take action when they don't have a certain amount of comprehension. So how do you get the understanding? You have to get educated on it. And it starts with seeking the information. So going back to, like you said, like even with the tax advantages, and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's one of the money mistakes that I see with small businesses in particular, especially if you're a solopreneur, is that we leave so much money on the table. And again, let me just make this disclaimer. I am not a CPA or a licensed tax professional, but I've noticed that many times we leave money on the table because we are just unaware of certain tax benefits. And one way you can actually just protect yourself, one, your assets, your personal assets in particular, and two, be able to leave more money in your pockets instead of giving it out to, let's say, Uncle Sam, for example, is by having a legal business structure. You would be surprised how many business owners have no protection. So what I mean by that could be an LLC, S Corp, C Corp, corporation. That's getting more into the legalities, but just having that protection, business insurances, just talking about PPP, which is payroll protection program, I believe is the name of it, the formal name. The fact that grant is available. So for a lot of small businesses, they had to to keep their business afloat, so to speak, is get rid of a lot of their workforce, but just taking advantage of that. But again, we just don't have certain things in place. So just to go back, I went off on a tangent a little bit because that's important. But those tax benefits, just having a legal structure can protect you in so many ways. Plus those additional insurances, taking advantage of those programs, grants as well.
Yeah. You touched on insurance, and I think that I'm going to run with that and circle back to, where we're coming from with some of the common mistakes. But life insurance is so important. And you can use it in several different ways. So one of the ways that I always recommend, and I've used it myself, is that you can become your own bank. You can borrow against your life insurance. You can fund yourself. You could pay yourself back. And so you're borrowing against yourself versus using bank loans, and you're able to perhaps use that for investment in your business or anything else. And a lot people don't realize that. And another way, and I've done this practice, so I'm speaking from a personal perspective, and that was to capitalize a business. And another way to use life insurance, you can, if you have a business partner, you could take out life insurance on the partner. And some people don't want to have, let's say a morbid conversation, but it's more of a reality. So if something happens to your partner and you do have an insurance, the 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 payout can now be invested in that business, and the business could keep going. A lot of businesses fail once there's any kind of demise within the partnership, and that does not have to be the case. And that comes with what we touched on earlier, which is the succession planning. What happens to your business on day, 1, 2, or 3 after something so tragic? And that comes with planning and having the right team and the right structure along with everything else. Have you seen success stories with life insurance?
Absolutely. And I am a firm believer of life insurance. Now, just for those who, because there's so many different companies and it can
Yes.
be very confusing, but there's just two types of life insurance in essence. There's a lot of different names, but it boils down to two types. There's cash value and term life insurance. Now, I believe that there's no one size fit all
Mhm.
type of financial plan. I tend to go on the side of term life insurance because there's different factors with that. But there's instances where potentially the other could possibly be a benefit. The the whole point of it is get life insurance in place, and here's why. One, it actually helps create wealth. And what do I mean by that? Let's talk about our immediate family. So our children, our partners, that we might potentially leave behind. So most people associate life insurance with just the funeral, but
Mhm.
life insurance actually covers the loss of the person and anything associated with the person. And most people think that their biggest asset is their home, and it's actually is yourself. Because if you're not able to work, if you're not able to go out there and generate income and hustle for your family, then if something happens to you, the loss of that income is devastating to
Mhm.
your family.
Yeah.
So it protects your greatest asset, which is yourself. All right. So what life insurance is, say for instance, I'll do an analogy. Say you had $100,000, just for easy math, $100,000. So say there was two parties. So say there was you as the partner and then your spouse, right? And say
Mhm.
you both brought in $50,000, for easy math together. That's $100,000 lifestyle, right? God forbid something happens to you, it goes from two incomes to one.
Mhm.
So now you have $100,000 lifestyle with only $50,000 still
Right.
left coming in. So what life insurance is, it brings it back up or even beyond. So the debt of the expenses can get covered. That spouse can also, and that family can mourn without having to rush back to go to work. And then the other way it builds wealth long term is that your children or whomever your beneficiaries are do not have to start over. They can
Mhm.
actually use that to build wealth. So for instance, if
Mhm.
let's say I was the beneficiary of someone who had life insurance, and I was given, let's say for easy math, $10,000. I
Mhm.
can then take that $10,000 and I can invest it and build wealth. Invest it whether in a business, invest it whether into some type of investment vehicle, real estate, or some type of something in the market. And
Mhm.
then my money can grow and I don't have to start over. And unfortunately, for most families, it's devastating if someone is unfortunately deceases, if they pass away, because the family is now responsible for all of the debt expenses, and then they have to start from scratch. So
Mhm.
what you do once again is you protect, one, yourself, two, you protect your family, and potentially can grow wealth for the generations that are growing up.
Absolutely. I love that. And that protection piece it's so big. And you don't realize, security, comfort, all those things allow you to face the next day. And so it can't be said enough. If that resonates with you, we'll do a hashtag too. Let us know if you're interested in more information on that, and how we use it for leverage in our business and personally. We'll always follow up and circle back with you guys. If you want us to see your name during this broadcast, well, you have to give StreamYard permission, and then we can tell who's making the comments. We cannot respond until after the broadcast. So hashtag live if you're live with us. Hashtag replay if you're on the replay. Someone just commented that their family just went through that, the situation that we're talking about now with insurance. And my heart goes out to that, because it's not just nothing is as tough or as calloused as it seems. Sometimes you have to be that way to get through, but as you soldier through, and these lessons that you learn, you have to apply the knowledge, and share it for the next person. There's so many people who need this information.
If I may, and again, to the person that just shared that, my heart goes out to you as well. And I would like to put this out here as an income saving strategy. The earlier or the sooner the better, because you can actually get a lower rate on your monthly premium or your annual premium. Unfortunately, we don't like to think about the possibility of death, but it's inevitable. So if you could actually get a premium or actually put in a life insurance policy this earlier, because when you're younger, you're usually healthier. They take into consideration your age, your gender, your health, and certain demographics like that. So you want to be able to save costs. And when you save costs, you're able to build wealth that way too. Because think about it, if you're paying, let's just say, for instance, $50 a month for access to a $200,000 policy, over the lifespan of you paying those premiums, you're probably most likely going to pay 50% or 30% of what you would pay if you wanted to take out $100,000 loan and pay that back. There's not the interest, there's not any of that. So again, if it takes you over the course of, let's say, 20 years to pay $10,000 to get $100,000, you build wealth, and you did it at a very low cost. So I just wanted to plug that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. My first insurance, my parents actually, taught us to have insurance early. So my first insurance policy was about, I think it was 20 or 21. And so, and I have it today, and I've used it in the manners I talked about before. So, and have bought subsequent policies. So don't overlook it. It's very handy, very useful. And I have, as someone with young children, I also feel comfortable that they'll be taken care of as well. So it's just it really pulls on your heart from different directions. Something else, I want to switch gears a little bit with another money mistake in the business arena, and that is planning and forecasting for lean times, for emergencies, for this surprise pandemic that nobody saw coming. What are some of the ways to plan for these lean times?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this question, because this is one of my favorite topics, saving and investing. And unfortunately, for a lot of us, it takes something unexpected to happen in order for us to get the lesson, unfortunately. And we might have heard the term budgeting, and we might have heard the term emergency savings time and time again, but we didn't take advantage of it. And now people are starting to wake up of the importance of both. So when it comes to saving, and it comes to the word budgeting, I don't care if you have to change the name and say Freedom Fund. I don't care if you have to make up a different term for it. Do whatever you need to in order to make sure that you apply it. So let's start with the budgeting, because you talked about forecasting and being prepared. One of the number one mistake that I've seen with startups in particular is not having enough nest egg. And why don't they have? And what I mean by nest egg is basically how much money you have together before you jump and launch. And the reason why is because they don't have a proper financial game plan in place. And if you correlate that to your personal, just going back to what we were talking about earlier about just how personal mindset affects business, when you don't have a budget in place that you stick to in your personal household, your personal life, it translates into your business. So a financial game plan or strategy is basically out the window. So here's some ways you can do it in a way that it's simple. You don't have to feel overwhelmed about it. So there's two ways. So this is online and offline. So online, in order to create the budget, let's start personally. You just track your income and your expenses. That's all it is. You're just tracking it. I know it sounds like it's difficult. It's really not. How can you do it? You can either write it down. So I spent $5 on coffee today, and I had X amount of dollars come in this month. And you just look at the trends. So what I mean by trends, how much of my money is going towards entertainment? How much of my money is going through food? And I would suggest everyone do this exercise for at least 1 week, because I know a month is long term and you have to build the habit. So 1 week, just track how much money you have coming in. If you have a stable check, you know how much you're going to get every month. If you have side hustles and businesses, you need to actually track how much came in from your services and your products. So just track how much money you had come in that week. How much money did you have go out that week? All right. Once you do that for a week, then you can take a look. You can take a look at, and I break this down in my book, 5 Money Mistakes That's Costing You a Fortune, if you need an actual template. But you can actually take a look at the trend. So I spent X amount of dollars on these utilities. I spent X amount of dollars on this. Oh, I noticed that I'm spending a lot on food outside. You know, although we're inside in the pandemic, I have so much food coming in from, DoorDash, etc. Right? So you can start taking a look and say, oh, I need to cut some of those costs. Once you know your trends, then it's something I call the Me Fund. And you can do this through I call it the Me Fund because you have to pay yourself first. That's the other thing that we don't do, especially in business. You have to pay yourself first. And what that means is a portion every single month, every week, however you need to do it in order to create the discipline, needs to go into, I call it for myself, the Me Fund. So that means X amount of dollars or X percentage is going to go specifically for me. And what that does is that allows me to use, let's say it's $300 at the end of the month because I'm putting X amount of dollars every week. Say $300 is reserved for me. I am able to look into that and say, okay, if I want to get my hair done, I have it in the budget. If I want to get my nails done, I have it in the budget. The other thing is, once you see those trends, you'll be able to consistently save because then you know how much money you have left over, if any. And if you see negative, that means you have to cut expenses because only one or two things you can do: make more money or cut expenses. Okay, so those are examples. The other thing is a lot of people with the credit card swiping, it's very, very difficult now. So if you have to put cash on hand, and I know right now with everything, most of us being a little bit locked down or restricted, most things are coming out of your credit cards or your debit cards. But if you have to have cash on hand to help you be more disciplined, you put your cash in an envelope. It's called an envelope method. You put it in an envelope and you pay out that way. So if you use your credit card, even if you have to put the money to the side and deposit it later, you do it that way just to create the discipline. And so that's the offline way of doing it. Online is a little bit more easier because if you're using your credit card, you have your statements where you can see where your trends are, how much you're coming in, how much is going out. There's also apps available like Mint. I love Mint, that tracks everything and budget it for you. So that's budgeting. Let's go into the savings and investing. So once you understand your numbers, most important things, again, understanding your numbers, which is that budgeting. And it helps with business because you're able to forecast and create a financial game plan. Once you have your personal finances a lot better in your business, you then work on your savings and investments. Now, most people want to start doing that right away, but they don't understand the bones, or the foundations, which is your budgeting. So once you get that into play, you can start really dialing in and finding out how much you need in order. So for example, if my living expenses is $2,000 a month, I need at least, let's just say 3,000 in order to be able to have a portion go into my savings, a portion's going to my retirement, and a portion goes into my me. When it comes to business, talking about forecasting and investing, the nest egg is very important. And I said all of that prior just so we can get here, because most startups really make the mistake of just jumping out without a parachute. They just come up with a magic number off the top of their head and they just go for it. So for instance, oh, you know what, $5,000, I feel like that's what I can afford right now, and that sounds good to me, and I'm just going to do it. Yeah. But you have to have a strategic plan, a strategic financial game plan, not just the strategy on how what my product is or my service is, but you have to have the financial plan in place first. So that means researching inventory. How much does it cost for X? How much of it do I need? How much is it going to cost to delegate some of these responsibilities? Yeah. So I can pay someone, or if I'm getting, how can I keep that cost down and maybe volunteer or barter to get someone? How much is it going to cost if you needed a brick and mortar, or how much is it going to cost to actually create my brand online? So, really dialing in those, peeling out those layers and getting those numbers down. First and foremost, how am I going to structure my business? How much is it going to cost on the state level, federally? If I have to do any licenses, permits, how much are all of those things going to cost before I get out and launch? So once I do the numbers, and you don't want to guesstimate, no guesstimates here. You want to be specific. This is a strategic plan, a strategic financial game plan. Once you know the numbers, then you can start seeking funding or saving or building that nest egg somehow, whether it's you personally fund it, whether, a lot of times for grants and loans, you have to be an established business, but there's crowdfunding. It's easier to ask for funds when you have a clear plan, when you have a strategic plan, when you have that business plan. You can go and ask for loans, or even if you ask family and friends, you're more apt to get more people behind you and to give you a greater sum of money if you have the details of, this is going to cost this. This is how I'm going to do this. This is what I will do after that. And then you can charge at a certain premium when you have those things in place. So that way you're not underfunded when you jump out there. So I know that was a lot, but in the nutshell, you have to make sure that you know your numbers and you have the plan in place. How do you do that? You have the budget or the strategic plan, and then you create the savings portion of it so that way you can launch. I hope that made a lot of sense to everyone.
It does. It does to me. Feel free to make comments in our comment section. Again, we'll circle back with you. Budget and savings and next egg. I got all those key points. There are a couple things that you also touched on that I want to expand on. I think within the business realm, what I like to make sure people do as well is create an allowance for bad debt. And I say that because you may be in a situation where your clients, their income dries up because of whatever industry they're in or whatever happens, life happens, and you are expecting those receivables and you may not get them. So understand that you have to have some type of insulation around your budget. It can't be very clean to the point of your expenses down to a penny. There has to be an allowance for bad debt. And you could put that on the sheet, on your balance sheet in a separate area, allowance for bad debt, whatever you want to call it. But do have that there, because there'll be times where you need to back up your expenses, and there has to be a way to do that. So I want to give everybody that, just from the business perspective, to make sure that you stay afloat. And then also you mentioned loans, and I want to talk about that because we talked about taxes a little bit, and I'm not a tax professional, and I'm not licensed and as a financial planner either. But when it comes to loans, and we're evaluating, people are seeking loans, and we're evaluating the strength of a company. I do fund, right? And we're looking at that, or I also do investments. And people, because of tax implications, will take out so much expenses that you could tell that it's overdone, to the point so that their tax liability is as small as possible. So now your company is not profitable, but then you want a loan. So no bank is going to fund you when you have not proven that your business can generate income. So there has to be some honesty there with your expenses. So while I understand the tax cut big business, or even some of the examples that big business has set for us, that's not the reality of most functioning companies and how they have to perform. If you need a loan from a financial institution or from an investor, we're all looking at, before we invest, we want to know that not only are you a strong leader and that you have a strong team and you have a viable product, but you know how to turn a profit, and that's going to be evidenced in your numbers. So I want to make that clear too. You can't handle, both the same. So we're talking about life and business, and it's really important to get that we have to show that the company is viable, especially if you're looking for any type of cash infusion from any other source but yourself.
Yes, that's a very good point, because a lot of people are seeing that now, because anything can happen, right? There's emergencies that happen. And like, even in this situation, how you were saying, you might have a certain invoice. Say your client doesn't pay you until 60 or 90 days out.
Mhm.
What happens to the operation of your business? You need an operating budget, right? You also got to know, how you said, to be able to make profits. So does that mean an additional income stream? Does that mean cutting down some expenses? Does that mean investing into another vehicle, right, that can generate and replace some of those funds that you may be lost? So this is why, just going back to what we talked about earlier, this is why you need to seek help, because there's not a one size fit all. And as you go through different business cycles, because how you approach being a startup is totally different for how you stay afloat and sustain yourself to scaling. It's totally different. It's different parts of the business cycle. But when you seek help and you get a financial coach, you get a mentor, then you learn these things. Then you're able to avoid these hurdles that, so unfortunately, so many small businesses are experiencing now. Now, again, the pandemic has made it very, very difficult in several ways, but I do know quite a few businesses in various industries that are thriving because they knew their numbers. They had strategic plans in place should something of an emergency or something happen. They know how to generate profits. They know how to create additional streams of income. So it's very important that instead of you flying by the seat of your pants, that you also tap into resources like this community and get the information that you need and not find out by mistake.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this has been really great conversation, and there's so many gems that you've dropped. Again, if anybody wants follow up or anything like that, throw it in the comments. We'll definitely circle back with you as soon as we wrap this up. I'm going to there's so much you shared. Like I have like several questions, but I want to bring it down to probably the last couple points here. So we're in Black History Month, and I think that it's prudent that not only is that it acknowledged, because many of us are creating and adding to the list of achievements of Black history, proudly enough. But when it comes to wealth and money and access, there's often a disparity. So what can you share from that perspective in terms of inequities and how we have to be, I guess, cognizant of it and understand how to have a seat at the table, have a voice, and have it matter and have it materialize to the result that we all want?
Absolutely. And I love this question specifically because I'm a fellow Black female in business. And it's very important that we understand that the Black dollar in particular is worth over $1 trillion buying power in the United States of America. So what does that mean? Our spending has been approximately $1 trillion. So it's powerful. Unfortunately, we don't recognize our power. Capitalistic society, and you're able to have a seat at the table when you can talk green. Green is the new language. And in order for us to really be able to have impact, and I don't want to make this political or anything like that, but to be able to have more of the voice, is we need to recognize how important our spending is. So I like to say we need to spend where we want our voice to be heard. That's where we need to start spending. So we need to invest Black. We need to create businesses that are Black owned, women owned, minority owned. So then that way we can have a louder voice, because when we start impacting the economy and come together as a whole, then we can actually start making strides and start making decisions, because the decision makers are always at the table. When you look at any board meeting, the decision makers are at the table. So how do you get to the table? You have to create something economic that can start making your voice be heard. So I would encourage everyone here, whether you have a existing business or not, I want you to really start thinking about, just really pay attention to the market, understand what direction it's going in, really understand your industry. Is it viable? Is it going to be sustainable? And think about that over the next 5 to 10 years. Because if you have to pivot, now is the time. And that's how our voice is going to be heard, when we can start making economic impacts.
Awesome. I love that response, and it really does button us up well. Like I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, Lateisha's platform is international, and this date was very important to us because of her international schedule and those commitments. So I am going to invite you back to do another masterclass with us, and at that time, I would love for you to talk about introducing our businesses on an international level and how we can be players in the global arena. And then, people just see their, I guess their net here in their locale, but you can cast a wider net. You can really create economic shifts on a bigger platform. And because you've done that with such success, when we're in Wealth and Wellness Network, there's nothing stopping me from connecting with somebody in Ghana or Canada or in any other country, in Trinidad and Tobago. And it's really a beautiful thing to see. So you've shared so many great tips with us today. Thank you so much. I would love to invite you back to do an international showcase and what we can do in those powers.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you so much. I am so honored to get the invitation. I'm excited. That's actually a really important and passionate topic, because for those who don't know, I am a co-founder of an international nonprofit organization that's based in Ghana, which is in West Africa. So I travel back and forth. And I also, like she mentioned as well, I have Wealth and Wellness Network, which is a global community, and there's women from all over who are able to collaborate and connect and give resources. So I would love to talk about it and tell my story, how I broke into that. And guess what? There's so many ways to do it without it having to break the bank. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. There's so much. So I can't wait to share all the gems and just give my experience and insight.
Awesome. I'll put out an invitation link somewhere in the comments later after we go through everyone's comments. Lateisha, thank you again so much for being here. I'm going to talk to you off stage for a little bit. Again, hashtag live if you're here with us live, hashtag replay if you catch the replay. Ask your questions now or post. We will still respond. Invite everyone to F.U.E.L. If you know a future business leader, a future entrepreneur who's really serious about creating change and creating wealth, then please invite them to F.U.E.L. You can catch me at thesmallbizengine.com, and I am happy to share anything that within my realm of expertise in building your business and crafting our acumen in order to hit the top and beyond. So again, thank you everyone for joining us, and we will see you soon. See you, Lateisha. Bye.
See ya. Thank you.